The famous philosopher Plato has this description of a dark cave, and in it are people who've spent all their life in that underground dark region. And because of the darkness, their eyes have become more acute and sharpened to the tiny bit of light that is filtering through. One day, one of their number manages to escape and goes to the outside world, and is so thrilled that he wants to come back to tell his friends in the cave what it's all about. He comes back, and when he gets into the darkness, he can't see a thing. And his friends to say all they can understand is that they have far more than he has, because he can't anymore do what he was able to do before. And they carry on in that vein. The only thing is that at that stage he knew both sides of the story. He gave that teaching in pre-Christian times to make philosophers aware that there are degrees of light, and that those who are content with a little only know one side of the story. Pagan though he was able to get as far as the supreme source, because he was following logic. Aristotle did the same, so much so that our great thinker, St. Thomas Aquinas, was able to use him, and refers to him right through his works as the philosopher. That means that there are certain things that we have not actually lost from the Garden of Eden. One is our capacity to reason correctly, and actually to find at least a prime mover, a source of good, the perfection from which all else is a pale reflection, and some hand guiding and indeed forming. And I remember when in seminary studying classics at Aberystwyth, the prior one day said this to us: "I have never yet met a man who doesn't believe in God." And what he was trying to say was, actually, if you scratch, they all do. You can't avoid it. Now, when growing up, I was in that cave because I'd only known the Welsh Baptist sphere that I was always in. And one can live that way until death, never questioning what one has. And it's what actually most people do. And if anything, they go backwards and lose even what they've got in childhood. My best friend in school also had only known one thing. It was the Anglican thing, and he was born in an Anglican vicarage where his father was operating and living. Now, we talked a lot, and it was interesting to see that he had a brilliant mind, eventually 6 years of Oxford, very, very good thinker, and yet, although he was half-seeing, there was one thing that he could not do: make the plunge. Light was there, and he was becoming a little nervous. And actually it wasn't that dissimilar to what, strangely enough, Newman, who was there near where he was living in his own college of Oriel, that is, his room of Newman was there, we prayed before it, what he had, a little later in life of course, when faced with exactly the same light. And actually it's fascinating, because my friend was a high Anglican, and all that he was reading was Catholic, which is extremely uncomfortable, because actually you're sawing off the branch on which you're sitting. It's all telling you you're not a priest. But culture and background, and also the possibility of marriage, enter into it. So he managed to dodge the issue, and you're still functioning as a very good Anglican clergyman. What am I saying? Light. Now, light can come to us in many ways. When I was 13, 14, I got very interested in this phenomenon of the Catholic Church, because it was everywhere and always the same. We travelled a lot on the continent as a family. We were all divided. Can the light be prismated and divided? Is there a double truth? Now, how do you get through that one? Actually, the Lord did himself. And I've heard this from others too, Protestants. If you go into an open Catholic church, by the way, an open Catholic church is very, very important, and no one is with you, and you go into your own prayer mode, you'll start to pick something up which you didn't before. That box up there, it's not just a box. And do you know that even the animals can feel it? It happened about a year ago in Italy. A dog who was trained in sniffing out human beings, he was a professional sniffer of people in hiding, went into a church, went straight to the tabernacle and did exactly what he was trained to do when tracking down a living person. And I've seen a picture of him before the tabernacle, not budging and indicating where a presence was. Exactly the same happened to John Paul II in Boston. He had had a change of schedule, and they sent in sniffer dogs to make sure there was no plot against him. And they went to a dog to the same point in the big chapel. They went to the tabernacle and stood there. There is presence there. And I've heard it actually from many sources. If you put someone of goodwill before the real presence, the Lord actually can get the message through by supernatural means. But there is often that other thing which my friend had. Culture and other factors. They're not quite free. Now, on this day, we have this ancient gospel, which until recently was said after every Holy Mass, the last gospel. And it every time makes me think of what happened at the last gospel to our local saint, in that picture there. He was in his priest hideout in one of these noble families' houses, and they bashed down the door, and he was caught in his robes at the last gospel. A few days later, he was at the Tyburn tree, hanged, drawn and quartered for the real presence. And so it matters. He became a Catholic. He had been formed by a Protestant situation which had already come into being. We went some years ago to the chapel where he had been a student, St. John's in Oxford, and we celebrated there where he would have prayed as an Anglican, the Roman Catholic Mass. And I thought to myself, the externals may actually be the same, but the presence is either there or not there. And if we go through life functioning with only half light, we miss what the Lord had meant for us. And that is what half the Christian world today is doing.